Cousin Jared, we are recording a little earlier tonight than usual. So right off the bat, we tell people there's no player prop of the day because of that. But otherwise, I think, and I think you said it best, we've got a little bit of a greatest hits episode tonight.
Yeah, I think that's a very apt name for it. And some days you record a little bit early and you don't have many good lines on the board and everything. But hey, got lucky today. It's early, but there's lots of value on the board right now.
There is, and there are a ton of A-grade plays that we aren't even talking about on this show, including the play of the day, which I had to talk you out of talking about on this show because we had so many other good things to talk about, and a couple other A-grade plays. I'm sure we'll have more even tomorrow. So, a lot of good picks available over on Dub Club. But just as a reminder for everyone to talk about, this is a math show, and that's what creates the value is the price that we're getting, whether we're playing favorites or whether we're playing underdogs. And we got a couple favorites today, but whether it's favorites or underdogs, it's all about the price. And we're going to pass on some favorites and we're going to play some favorites. We're going to pass on some dogs. We're going to play on some dogs. Can't really give you a recap of Monday because it's, the games have just barely gotten going, but we can't talk about those. It seems like there's a lot of runs here on Monday night so far pretty early. So we'll see if that holds true, but without further ado, we'll get right to it here. 7:10 p.m. Eastern, Dodgers to Guardians. Cousin Jared, did you see the picture of Dodger Stadium with all of, surrounded by a moat basically after the tropical storm hurricane thing came through?
Yeah, I did see that. Tropical storm Hillary with one L, not to be confused with Hillary Duff. I've heard she's been taking a lot of flack on Instagram and various social media because of that. As somebody who lives in Houston, not fun when there's flooding. I can attest to that. And so, definitely thoughts go out to all the people affected by that. Not fun, but that is definitely like an image that will resonate. So terrible circumstances. Definitely it's going to be something you're going to look back on in 5 years and be like, oh, wow, that was like crazy when that happened.
Yeah, it reminds me of the one in Iowa where there's something similar happened. Where also that flooding and the stadium was just like basically in the middle of a lake. It was one of the like AAA ballparks or dump. I get probably single A, I guess in Iowa. I guess is what it would have been. Thankfully, I guess they got out of town here and we're safely into Cleveland. And it's a little bit of a mismatch here to say the least. Obviously, the Dodgers offense is really good. Guardians offense, not. Relievers really letting Cleveland down though from, they're not the only team. We're talking about another one later. Really all of them today. It feels like we're talking about the relievers kind of let these teams down. The solid, most improved sets of relievers have not been on, I think, any of the 6 teams we're going to talk about today, except for Boston. That might be the exception with that. The Guardians, one of the best set of relievers last year, this year kind of average. Dodgers relievers, hanging around, pitching a little bit better as of late. But again, not overall on the season the year they wanted to have, but definitely, still better than Cleveland. That's the smallest differential between the starting pitchers here. Noah Syndergaard obviously coming from LA, and that 6.57 ERA, it's probably not as bad as that, but it's not good. You can see it with the rating on screen there. Bobby Miller, 3.70 ERA, advanced metrics, so that's pretty spot on. FIP's a little lower, xFIP's a little higher. Pretty big mismatch here, and I don't really know what else to say other than that. We've been talking a lot about if there's any Dodgers edge, you run, don't walk to the window, and lo and behold, this is an A-grade play on the Dodgers. The A-grade threshold would be minus 220. Current price is minus 192. I do not understand why this is priced this way. It makes zero sense to me. I can't imagine it's going to last forever. I don't know how long it's going to last. You never really know. The number tends to move towards my model 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4 times. Every once in a while it goes the other direction. But for the most part, it goes that direction. And I just have to imagine as we get closer to first pitch, this number is going to balloon out into the 200s. But low 200s even, I think, is a really smart investment on the Dodgers. Model says they win 72% of the time. The correct price should be minus 261. A-grade value, still A-grade, but not quite as much wiggle room on the run line. A-grade price is minus 126. The actual price on the run line is minus 120. So barely into an A grade on the run line, a little bit more on the money line here. We're going to split the difference as always, like the -1. The implied odds are minus 159. A grade play. Cousin Jared, what do you got for us?
when I was looking at the Guardians team ratings there, I was kind of thinking, man, this looks like a UMass football or a New Mexico State football. Really not a high rating on offense and a high rating on the starting pitcher, which is not what you want.
No.
With the Guardians are that much of an outlier, but just kind of struck me after recording the first college football show. Yeah, this is a complete mismatch any way that you slice it. Me personally, I would take this on the money line if it was below 100. Once you get to minus 200, I definitely like what you're doing here. Just laying one run. I feel like that's the best thing to do in a game with a total about 8.5. I mean, as always, Dodgers could easily win this game by 3-4 runs. Wouldn't be surprising against a team like the Guardians. But yeah, if this was minus 200 or below, which you can get some places right now, I would just play it on the money line.
Yeah. I guess as you were saying, as it gets into the minus 200, that's maybe when you start thinking about splitting your bet. It's your personal recommendation. As always, though, play it how you like to play it. If you're more comfortable one way or the other, if you're looking for more risk, more reward, less risk, less reward, it all correlates. So whether it's money line or run line, the Dodgers are just a really good investment. Total projected at 8.4. The actual total is 9. And I think that's why there's a little bit less value on the run line at the current prices. It doesn't mean the market won't move. But right now, with the model kind of leaning towards the under 9, fewer runs makes it harder to win by more runs, right? We talked about the correlation there and higher scoring ball. It's why in Coors Field, your money line, run line prices aren't that different. I mean, they're different, but they're not quite as different as they are in other games. And when you get those like night games in June and Petco, where the total like 7, the plus 1.5 is like minus 250 or something, where it's this is, everyone knows it's going to be a tight game, right? So model would lean towards under. We talked about it, after that Coors Field fiasco last week with the weather changing overnight. We're going to hold off on totals the night before, unless it's in California or in a dome. So this is neither one of those. So we're going to hold off on it, but the model would lean towards the under. Wind blowing in, projected right now at 5 to 10 miles an hour. 70 degrees to start, mid 60s to close. So a slightly pitcher friendly night. Cousin Jared, if the weather holds, would you lean under? Would you just completely pass? How are your thoughts on this under 9, given if the projection of 8.4 holds into tomorrow?
I would not play under 9. Okay. Not with, let's see. Well, number one, I've kind of talked about Bryce Elder. Like, he is a good pitcher, but I think not quite as good as his numbers are. The underlying statistics have actually gotten better. Just me personally, I think that he's just not quite as good as that rating is. And then Noah Syndergaard, just not great, Bob. From what's gone this year against this Braves offense. I mean, who knows how many runs they could put up in this game. So this would be a stay away from me. It's even something that if the weather flips and, start getting a breeze out, I might look towards the over.
I feel like you got Braves and Dodgers confused there, but that's a completely understandable crisscross given the similarities between the two teams and the similarities between the two pitchers. You've got Bryce Hill, we're talking about next, with an 88 grade, Bobby Miller with an 87, and these offenses are both incredible. And we've talked a lot about we've talked a lot about these teams. Always said it's kind of the greatest hits episode here tonight, that with this Dodgers team and the Braves team that we're going to cover next, they can easily put up the over by themselves if things get rocking and rolling for them. And so it does feel a little bit like it's over or pass. And it doesn't mean you should play the over, but it would be maybe more of a pass if the weather holds here as it looks like it will for Cleveland. We're seeing that with the Braves tonight. Right now, they already have seven runs combined in that game through 4 innings. And so that's the type of thing the Braves and Dodgers both can do, and they've done a lot this year. So model would lean under right now. Because, Jared, do you think under not a good idea? And I definitely understand what you're saying with this Dodgers offense.
I mean, Tyler McGill and Noah Syndergaard have basically the same rating by sideline.
Also true.
I can talk about them interchangeably.
It really is. Moving on to Mets and Braves, it's like the same game. I mean, the difference here is that the Mets offense is better than the Guardians offense. I mean, there's no denying that, but the counter to that,
somehow worse.
The relievers are worse. And of course you flip the game location, right? So other than that, though, it's really a carbon copy between these two games. You already mentioned it, Tyler McGill, Bryce Elder. McGill, probably a little bit better than Syndergaard based off of his stuff this year. Again, we should not only use this year. Now, by this time of the year, previous seasons' weight is down to a third or a quarter, depending on the pitcher. So we are mostly not using a previous, we are using a little bit, and that is kind of affecting the ratings here. And that's probably why you're seeing maybe a little bit more favorable, a similar rating between Syndergaard and McGill, despite the fact that McGill's numbers a tiny bit better this year. But I mean, it's also kind of one of those, if you squint hard enough, you can kind of convince yourself of one thing or the other. Neither one of those pitchers very good. Bryce Elder for the Braves, underlying metrics paint a little bit of a scarier picture than that 3.46 ERA, but still a solid pitcher. Yep. Nonetheless, again, really just a similar situation here. The Braves should be big favorites. We played them here as an A grade on Monday night, allowing a few more runs than we hoped. In this game, we'll see how it goes on Tuesday, but we talked about for Monday night's game, we expected a lot of runs. We said, the total was up in the 10s, and we said we thought there'd be a lot of runs based off the weather, that they had a chance. Both these offenses, as you saw on screen, are decent. And a similar thing here. Both these offenses might put up some runs. It's just you have to imagine the Braves against a bad Mets pitcher and a bad Mets bullpen. You feel like could get to 8 or 9 themselves. I don't know if they will, right? You don't predict that specifically, but a situation like that in against the Mets would not surprise you. And we're going to have another really warm day in Atlanta. 93 degrees to start, upper 80s to close. Winds will be blowing out at 5 miles an hour. It's going to be another hitter's haven in Atlanta on Tuesday. Projected total is 11.1. So we're going to take the Braves again. Just think this number is a little bit too short here. Implied at -162. The A grade price would be -2. I typoed there on the screen. The A grade price for the Braves would be -241. The current price is -210. And plenty of value on the Braves run line at -110. The A grade price would be -133. And it's just like we talked about with the Dodgers game. The difference is the weather's better here for hitting. So because of that, I think I would lean over. That makes the run line a little bit more advantageous. And so the run line has plenty of value on this one, where it's not to say the Dodgers can't win by multiple runs. It just means the probability of it being a tighter game is a little bit higher in that one than this one. This one sets up to be just a run fest, and that makes a one-run game a little bit less likely. We're going to play the Braves -1. Cousin Jared, given the total situation here, I have to assume you don't mind laying the 1.5 on this one and taking your chances. And if the Braves give up 10 runs, that kind of happens every once in a while, but otherwise you got to like your chances on the run line.
Yep, I like laying the 1.5 with the Braves in this situation with a total over 10. Right now, you can lay the 1.5 anywhere -115 to -120, something like that. And so I think that's great value, especially with the total being that high. And since I talked about the total already, I'll just reiterate. Right now, it would say this game, you should be over. The total is about 10.5. Says there's sideline says there should be about 11 runs. I like the over here, but as we discussed, until we get tomorrow morning's weather data, we're not going to make a play on the total. Me personally, I'm not making a play on the total until I see the weather for tomorrow. But this is definitely one of those, like one of the first things I'm looking for tomorrow morning when the professor updates this is, hey, what did the weather do and what's the total on this game now?
Yeah, the 12-hour difference, we're going from 24 hours before the game or 22 hours, whatever, before first pitch to wake up in the morning and run that, late, mid-morning, late morning, whatever it has, you're cutting the time in half, maybe even more than half between this. So you have a much better idea. And that wind, the wind is the temperature. We have a pretty good idea. The wind could shift around, but if it sticks like this with the breeze blowing out, there's going to be no resistance to the ball. And that's the thing is if the wind's blowing in, it's going to be hot and carry, but a little resistance. It's kind of, it should still be a lot of runs, but it may not be quite so easy. But wind blowing out, you got a real good chance to see, a crazy number. It's not quite like Coors Field, but it's one of those where if you wanted to have some fun and took a stab on like an over 12.5 alternate line at some bigger plus odds, or over 14.5 at big plus odds or something, it's like, put like a 1/10 of a unit on something like that for funsies, because it might be a lot of runs in Atlanta. And another game that we're expecting some runs here, 8:10 p.m. Eastern, Red Sox at the Astros. My goodness, as Astros fans, this has been a rough weekend. Justin Verlander on the hill for the Astros, who's the him and France are the only pitchers you have to have any faith in at this point with the way that Framber Valdez has been terrible, decides to throw a no-hitter, and then is terrible again. And Verlander wasn't even good his last start. If you ask Papa Professor Sides over in the next room, he wouldn't even have a lot of faith in Verlander. Astros offense, though, can still score. They looked a little different without Kyle Tucker in the lineup this weekend. He's playing now on Monday. If there's any concerns about his timing and that sort of stuff, that should get ironed out on Monday. Should be back to full strength, hopefully, on Tuesday. The Astros offense looks a lot more dangerous with him in the lineup, that's for sure. Tanner Houck, though, not a bad pitcher in himself. Don't be fooled by that 5.05 ERA. The advanced metrics say it's just been some bad luck. Red Sox relievers, again, the only set of relievers of the ones we're talking about today that I think have lived up to expectations or been better than expectations. The Astros relievers at a 100 grade is just so shocking. We've talked about that all season long. Two good offenses here. And so we're going to actually go over 8.5. There's not a huge edge on any of the sides here. If you had to take a side right now, you'd be looking at about a C grade pick, C to B grade on the Red Sox at plus 137. That'd be right around the B grade threshold. You need to get up to about plus 150 or so before you hit that A grade. Astros should be favored in this one. Verlander's the better pitcher when they're at home, but with the way their Astros been playing, you just have to be careful with the price. The number that you're laying here, and I don't think the current number of in the minus. I'm gonna typo it again there. Rushing to get the show off, and the slides have typos everywhere.
Whoever caused the rush, whoever caused this rush should really be banned from the show.
Yeah, well, that would leave me a little high and dry if that's the case. Minus 149 is the current price. A-grade price is minus 112, and so you're looking at just too much to go for the Astros. But over 8.5, it's a pretty solid pick. This one's in a dome, and so we can pick this one with confidence. The weather will not change, other than it will just be hot in Houston, and that's just the way it goes. Forecasted temperature for tomorrow night. Get excited because enjoy this down your neck of the woods here, mid 80s. So not insanely hot, but if they for whatever reason open the roof, that's only going to help the ball fly because it's going to be warmer. So if they open the roof, hallelujah. If they don't, it's still fine. Projecting the roof closed, we still think closer to 9 runs in this game, given the skill of the offenses, and there's just some question marks all around. The Astros ought to be able to score a little bit off Houck. Somebody's scoring off the Astros. Someone's always scoring off the Astros, it seems like these days. Cousin Joe, tell us more.
Man, you got me talking about Southeast Texas climatology. I think that we've done
that every once in a while. We do that.
I think that we've had 25 straight days over 100 degrees. It was 108 degrees, tied an all-time high yesterday on Sunday. And so, the roof ain't going to be open. But okay, the moral of the story, I don't know if I would completely agree with Uncle Professor, as I'm going to call him. But Justin Verlander is still a good pitcher, but he is not what he was, or at least so far this season, he has not been what he was. And he's going to give you 5 or 6 innings, but he's going to give up
hopefully 7.
Yeah, or 7 innings, but he's going to give up 2, 3, 4 runs.
Yeah.
Fine. Like above average, good pitcher.
Yeah.
But just not what he was. And so I think when people look at totals with Verlander on the mound, you're thinking, oh man, he's going to go 6 or 7 innings, only give up 1 run, strike out 8 guys. And it's like, that's not what he's been so far this year.
He's going to have a chance to do that against the Royals, against the Tigers, against, the A. We say the A's offense isn't that bad. That's of course relative to their role, but against the A's, he'd have a shot to do that, right?
Yeah.
Not against an above average offense like the Red Sox. These are the types of offenses that he goes 6 innings and gives up 3 runs. The weaker offenses, he goes 7, gives up 2. And so he's going 6 or 7, giving up 2 or 3 a game. And that's pretty good. It's just, you get the more 6 and 3 against the offenses like this than the 7 and 2 that you get against the weaker offenses. So he's definitely been one who you feel pretty confident, is consistent. And that's something the Astros need right now. But that consistency here means he's going to give up. He's always been susceptible to the home run, especially at Minute Maid Park. Mm-hmm. Hopefully as an Astros fan, it's solo home runs, but every once in a while you give up one with a guy on base, and all of a sudden those home runs can turn into some crooked numbers. Yeah,
I think this game's going to be about 5-3 in the 7th or 4-4 in the 7th, something like that. And there's going to be a couple of runs late in the game that puts this one over. It's just starting pitchers are good. They're fine. Offenses are better in this game.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there's going to be enough offensive edges in a park that can play pitcher friendly if you're pitching to the right parts of it, but can also play pretty hitter friendly given the short right field, and of course the Crawford box is in left field. So it's a pretty cavernous center field, but guys pulling the ball to one field or the other. And you already saw it here on Monday night. You've already seen a ton of base runners and a handful of runs. We're barely into the game. And that's the same sort of thing we expect to see. Just some runs, not the Justin Verlander of old.
Yep.
Sadly, still might be the Astros' best pitcher now, but I think that says more about Javier falling off a cliff, more about Fromber, whatever the heck's going on with him than anything else.
If you would have told me that JP France was going to be the second best pitcher on the Astros, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah. Yeah, because if we were a rookie, we would expect to be Hunter Brown, not France. So it's been a year, but it's okay. You win a title, you don't really get to complain the next year. So no, it's not that we're complaining. We're just commenting. We're just doing our job to say, this is how we're going to handle this from a monetary standpoint, trying to maximize our profits. Over 8.5 here is the play. So here is your recap: Dodgers -1, Braves -1. Both have made great plays over in Boston versus Houston. Cousin Jared, do you have any parting words for people? We got a full slate of games Tuesday. Unfortunately, no day games, but it should be a heavy night of baseball action Tuesday.
Yeah, baseball coming down the stretch here. AL West is heating up, speaking about the Astros, so definitely excited to watch that. And we just recorded our first college football show, week 0, get the season started off, so make sure that you're watching that as well. Yep,
lots of good things. A good time of year, a chaotic time of year for us, but a lot of fun. It's one of those good lack of sleep things because there's constantly something that is keeping you entertained. And that's all we've got then for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy the sports betting content provided on this channel, shoved right into your feed. We'll be back again tomorrow with more baseball betting content. But until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.